Jackie, for that generous presentation. It is a real pleasure and an honor to be here with you. I'm ready to share and learn with you. I'm from you.
Okay. So, since this is our first conference on visible thinking, what is visible thinking?
Well, as it works, says it's making your thinking visible, because you don't know what people have in their minds. So with this initiative, what we are trying to do is to uncover thinking. But this comes with a philosophical foundation and the idea that we need to value thinking. So if we value thinking, then we will promote it, and then we will make it visible. That means that we will uncover what's in your mind so other people can see and appreciate what's going on in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. How can we make young children's thinking visible?
Well, starting from the first thing that I told you, having high expectations and knowing that they can think. And that's the first thing, because when you value thinking, then you will promote thinking. And that brings me to talk about the cultural forces that Ron Richard has developed. Having high expectations. If you have high expectations, then you will provide children with opportunities to think. And when the children are engaged in thinking experiences, then you will provide them, then you can use strategies like the thinking routines that will allow them to uncover their thinking. And when they are uncovering their thinking and you are working with them, that's the discourse of the teacher, you are always modeling and showing them how thinking works and how thinking helps them solve problems. You are modeling, then you have a language of thinking. That means giving a name to the particular type of thinking that the child has. That's important. For example, if the child is making a connection, rather than asking the child, what are you thinking? It's what type of connections are you making? Or are you thinking or bringing some prior experiences to what you are saying? So you need to be concrete. Oh, that's an interesting analogy. So give a name to the type of thinking that the child says. And as children are involved in these type of experiences, it is important to capture. And that means to document what children are doing. And there are different ways of documenting, taking a picture of a particular thing that shows the type of thinking that the children were doing, recording their conversations, and having them available for them. I like to use videos in this digital era. It's nice. I wish when I was a kindergarten teacher, I wish I had a camera so I can videotape the children. Something that is helping me a lot, and my recent sabbatical I spent in centers in Australia where the children are always playing and with high quality play. It's recording children at play and then showing the type of play that they were involved and inviting them to give a name to the type of thinking that they were doing while engaged at play. And something that is very important and that we usually don't respect enough or don't give enough, it's time. Time to think and relax. Sometimes we ask children questions and we are not patient enough and we immediately jump into conclusions, or you respond to the question. And Ron Richard says we are rescuing them immediately. So we need to give them the time to think and to elaborate their answers or questions, that it's also part of thinking.
Yes, I think all Greek kindergarten teachers who have at least 25 children in their classroom and one teacher, I think time is the most difficult force that they have to develop and empower. So yes, we have to respect time. Now, in your article, Tools to Enhance Young Children's Thinking, you highlight several challenges that educators are confronted with when they try to engage young children in thinking and talking about thinking. How visible thinking approach can help teachers to overcome the egocentric and concrete ways that young children think?
And that's an excellent question, and that brings me to the beginnings of visible thinking in South Florida, because I was working with this particular teacher, the one that we started this movement, and one day she came and she was kind of confused or stressed, and she said, how do you want me to, oh, here's the alarm that I was talking with you. So she said, I'm so confused, how do you want me to talk with, about thinking with young children? They are very young, and this is an abstract concept. So, that was a legitimate question. But then I was trying to find out the way. We found a beautiful book from Dr. Seuss. It's called All the Things You Can Think. And that was the beginning of the conversation. Now she's the biggest advocate, but everything was taking us to the initial cultural force that I told you, the expectations. Sometimes I hear teachers experienced teachers that said, but young children don't think. And that's a wrong idea. Even very, very young children, they think. The thing is that not all of the children can express what they think, and especially at young ages when they don't have the language, the expressive use of language, but they do have the ideas. They have those ideas in their mind. So there are different ways of expressing themselves. And then that takes us to Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, is that children can express themselves through drawings. There was this teacher who was very strong using sculptures with clay. So while the children were engaged in those things, they were verbalizing their thoughts. And some of my research in the last few years has been around the concept of children's concept about thinking. And usually what I see before they are exposed to visible thinking is they have an associate, that's a category that Ron Richard started when he did a research with older students, and I did the same thing with young kids. So the associate stage is when children are talking, okay, I'm thinking about my mom, I'm thinking about the park, about pizza, or they create stories. Or they say, oh, I'm thinking with my brain. Sometimes teachers get very excited when they hear, I'm teaching with my brain, and because my brain is doing things. And that's good, and that's interesting, but it's the same as saying, what is taste? And they say, it's my mouth, or I can taste things with my mouth, but taste has more things behind that. So that's when the teachers need to give that and the name. And we go back to the cultural forces, because when children are doing any type of thinking, it's important to give a name to the type of thinking so they can be aware of how their thinking is helping them solve problems, or most importantly, how thinking is pushing them to find problems and solve problems, to be problem finders. Because only curious people are the ones who are inventing things and who are being innovative, and that's what we want to.
Thank you so much, so important. Now, many scholars stress that mastery of the basic skills of reading, writing, and math is no longer enough. Instead, work, learning, and citizenship in the 21st century demand that we all know how to think. So, according to your opinion, how important is to foster thinking in children for lifelong and independent learning in the 21st century?
Listen, one of my areas of interest has been literacy. And as you know, writing is thinking in paper. And that's what directed me to find invisible thinking a very powerful venue to promote those skills. Because when I was a kindergarten teacher, I was very interested in having children write stories and things like that. But who can write something if you don't have something in your mind? Because there's a connection. Language and thought are connected. And writing is a way of thinking. It's a way of externalizing their thinking. Mm-hmm. So actually, Ron Richard and David Perkins, they said that when you are writing, cognition, you are emphasizing cognition, because when you're writing, you are organizing thoughts. So the idea is that you are no longer teaching children to write, rather than you are teaching them to think, because thinking will lead them to writing. That will create the need for them to write. Because just think about young kids. And the way that they express themselves are through drawings, right? Mm-hmm. And they can draw a house, they can draw the sun, they can draw a lot of things. But when you ask them, okay, draw an analogy, then they get stuck. And that's when the language has to be expressed, and that's when they have to find ways of expressing through print. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that answers your question, but those skills are very important. That's the thing is that it's not that we are not longer valuing those. We value them. It's important. We want them to express themselves, to know their math. But what we need to think is that all of those skills are the result, are the consequence of thinking.
Mm-hmm.